Hello, everyone. We are very privileged to have with us Mr. Sandeep Batra, Chief Financial Officer at Crompton Greaves Consumer Electric, with us for the next edition of the CFO Club. Mr. Batra, welcome to Dun& Bradstreet CFO Club.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nana, for having me here.
The first question I would start with, we are reading a lot of stories, a lot of news that the consumer demand is increasing, the economy is looking good. So, I mean, we will go back past to the pandemic days and we will go back to March and April. But how is October and the festive months looking for you?
Quite good, actually. I think I was having a conversation with somebody earlier in the day, and he was saying that our kind of companies, the consumer durable or consumer electric companies, have lots to smile about. So we've declared our second quarter results last week. We've had a fantastic second quarter, top line up in double digits. In some categories, it has grown 40-50%, but overall, yes, a top line growth of 13% and PBT growth of 50%. And if I look at some of the results of peer companies, they've all reported uh, similar kind of performance on the top line, but a significantly improved performance on the bottom line. And as I look at how the early days of October have been, I think the similar trend continues. So for us, certainly, it's been enough to cheer about. Can't complain. Touch wood, but
You're saying that that there's an increase in the bottom line quite significantly. What could be the results of increasing the bottom line? I mean, what steps that you have taken, or what do you think that has worked so well for the bottom line to do so well after the pandemic and during the pandemic?
so I think I would ascribe the bottom line performance to three reasons. One, which has kind of an initiative that we have driven in Crompton now for the last 4 or 5 years, which has been a waste elimination efficiency improvement program, which every year has kind of saved us anywhere around 3 to 4% of our top line in terms of cost savings, and these have been incremental savings. So that program has continued, gained momentum, and has delivered results for us in the second quarter. The second reason has been, quite easy and has been done by most companies, which has been to postpone many expenses in this period. One, of course, has been, say, advertising. Most companies were not sure of how the demand will be even in the second quarter. So whatever discretionary expenditure may have been planned for second quarter, that was kind of put on the back burner. Obviously, we've had savings because travel has been quite minimal. Recruitments have been happening at a much slower pace. So basically, discretionary expenditure has been much lower. And lastly, all companies, in fact, I guess in some form, and Crompton, I think we did a damn good job of it. At the time of when the pandemic broke out in March and April, we put in place very aggressive cost and cash conservation plans because at that time the outlook was dire and it was quite uncertain. So what we did was that we did pan company cost reduction and cash conservation initiatives. And the benefits of those have continued into the second quarter. So some of that may get rolled back into the business as we go ahead and as things start becoming more normal. But certainly we got a large amount of that benefit in the second quarter for the three reasons that I articulated.
So you said that you have taken decisions on cost reduction, on discretionary spending. Do you foresee that as a CFO you plan to continue some of it in 2021, or as we are going inching towards more normal, you will go ahead and back to 2019 era? How you are planning to balance this two?
So some expenses certainly will come back. For example, expenses which are discretionary, like conferences or meetings, they will come back because there is a lot of merit in physical interaction amongst people. Life cannot, continue virtually. But some benefits, for example, a lot of travel used to happen, which was not towards meeting a customer. So non-customer facing travel will certainly be questioned by every company, because that interaction you can very easily do at the other end of a computer, either by phone or through a virtual interaction like this. And the other thing that we are looking at certainly is the need for having large offices where everybody has a desk. Uh, so, doing some kind of hot desking, and then thereafter looking at what should be the ideal office space. So that's something that we are doing all across our offices, looking at what is the right size office that we need to have. So those kind of savings will certainly become permanent.
I mean, have you experienced in the month of April, May that, the production, obviously the production was definitely hit, but did you see that the workforce integration, I mean, they disintegrated and they went back to their places, and do you see they're coming back and there's a good mobilization? What is your view on that?
So manufacturing, we were the first to restart our operations in our peer set. So I think our factory started all the way in April, and we initially
Oh,
obviously ensured that all social distancing norms were in place, all safety protocol was followed. So if employees were using public transport, we then ensured that we had company provided buses to transport them to the factory, and then we also installed technology solutions, some kind of wearables that employees wear on their wrists, so that on the shop floor it is not possible to monitor physically or by an individual as to whether social distancing is being followed or not. So we relied on technology
okay.
to give alarm and alert as to whether there is any violation of social distancing while on the shop floor. uh, uh, if I may try and describe the manufacturing process in many of our plants is like a single line assembly, where components move from station to station, and a finished product comes out at the end of the line, a bit like an automobile assembly, where there is a lot of manual interface. Most of the stations are manned by individuals. So it became a big challenge of how do you ensure due social distancing in that. So we did a lot of local innovation. So we had plastic transparent sheets separating one workstation to the other, so quickly up and running. So those kind of local innovations were done certainly for the short term, but certainly for the long term, we are looking at how we could invest behind more automation, so that the number of workstations or number of people required per line comes down. But as I said, our primary focus, number one, remains around safety and health of our employees.
This is you have worked in different finance function to become a CFO today, but what you have experienced in the last 6-8 months is something I'm sure for all of us it's new, for you it's new. So any particular learning at a personal level that you want to share it with our viewers, that that really helped you to continue with your function, and you really thought that that is something that you want to continue for the next phase of your career?
Certainly, so two things stood out. One, something which I have believed in, and it's something that has made it easy for me to relate it to the others. But if I look at it as a learning for me in this last 6 8 months, it is about communication. Generally, you communicate face to face. You communicate in meetings. You communicate in other non-formal manners with your team. All those channels are not available. Everything is impersonal. Everything is virtual. So therefore, the need is to then enhance the amount of
Mm,
communication, do much more. If the conversation earlier was once a month, now do once a week, maybe daily. So I used to travel to the branches or to the regions or to the factories maybe once a month, but I realized that's not going to be possible. So what do you do differently? You look at having virtual meetings. So for the first 3 months, I would have had daily virtual meetings with all my direct reports. something I've never done. I have not spent so much time with them in the last 5 years that I've been in Crompton. But it was required to do so that everybody feels that he or she is not alone.
Correct.
Because the most distressing feeling for somebody could be that, hey, maybe am I going through this alone? Am I abandoned? Am I not part of a system? So that was something that we had to underscore. And the second thing, the learning, which has in fact only reinforced what I have always believed in, is that there will always be situations, always, which you have not anticipated, which you have not predicted. None of us, we all have the benefit of hindsight, but none of us have the benefit of foresight to predict what will happen and in what manner. The real difference between a company which survives these disruptions and companies which sink is the agility with which you respond. Okay. Uh, so my mantra has always been that the agility of your response is far, far more important than the accuracy of your prediction.
Okay.
Because however intelligent you may be, I can bet you nobody could have predicted the ramifications of this pandemic. But companies which have reacted and responded to this with agility will find themselves in a far better position than those who would have spent months trying to fine tune their worksheets around it.
In your professional world, how do you manage the risk taking as a CFO? There's a lot of risk, decisions you have to take to mitigate risk. And
Correct.
how you manage that risk taking ability, or how do you do your risk management, and how and what kind of data you look at to manage that risk.
So risk is certainly inherent because obviously we don't have, as I mentioned earlier, any foresight. We all have benefit of hindsight. So one, of course, is that you have to have a very, very robust governance and risk management process, because a lot of the risk is addressed through having a process where um the process itself brings a lot of predictability, and it cuts out a lot of the unknown that generally forms part of a risk. So the real unknown then only remains as what you may call as a residual risk. So if you have very strong processes, very strong systems, very strong governance mechanisms, they will cut out, to my mind, 90-95% of the risk. So let me give an example. A lot of risks people talk about of disruption in supply source is one risk, just as an example. And disruption in supply source can happen through many things, natural calamity, etc., etc. But if you have a very strong process, then you will make sure that you don't have too much reliance on one supply source. You have adequate safety measures in that supply source to ensure that no incident or accident takes place. You will do proper tests of those contingency or backup plans, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the risk gets addressed if you have strong and robust systems and processes. Second risk gets addressed if the lag between an event and the outcome of that event is reduced. To give an example, let's say uh, um, I have no idea about my profit or my cash performance, and I'm struggling to figure that out. So it creates uncertainty. It may create some risk. But if I have very good systems which are able to translate all the data that is there in my in every company's IT system, and convert that data using technology, which today makes it possible, into insights, and those insights then get actioned on by company. So to that extent, uh, using digitization or digital investments in every company certainly go a long way in helping address these risks.
So you really says people that the agility of response, a quick response is what worked for you, and you prescribe that for people. So take a
Absolutely.
decision which is faster rather than sitting on it. I also wanted to understand from you, like, since being as a senior person in the finance industry, there's a lot of a lot of new chartered accountants, finance professionals coming into the profession. What would you expect, out of them when you take somebody, a new person in your team, and who has the aspiration to come to your shoes after 20 years, 25, 30 years? But what would you say to their career? I mean, how they need to shape their career to bring, come and become a CFO of tomorrow?
So I have, I mean, I have lots of advice to give them, because we follow this practice in Crompton, and I have followed it in my earlier organizations, where you go to campuses, get some bright youngsters, and give them a free run in the company. So I tell them two things, uh, and I will limit it to two. One is, um, never curb your curiosity to question. Because every organization you join, and if I were to say this to myself, when I would have passed out, and something that stood me in good stead, that I never stopped asking why is something being done in the way it is being done. Because in all organizations you join, you will be given a spiel that this is the way it happens in Crompton, or this is the way it happens in company X or company Y. But for youngsters who are joining, okay, they are like a breath of fresh air. They have, very, very sound conceptual knowledge, all the right skills, fantastic energy, skills of dealing with multiple problems at the same time, much more digitally savvy than people of my generation. So my advice to them is, always have the never allow your curiosity to ask why get abated, or die down. Always ask, why is it done? Can I do it more efficiently? Can I do it slightly differently? And try. At the worst case, you will fail, and I don't think any company will sink if one management trainee does a mistake or does a project that didn't happen successfully. So that is one mantra. And the second mantra is take ownership. This is a competency, or a behavior. I have certainly not come across in any management book this concept of ownership. Everybody talks about different buzzwords, taking accountability, drive for results, etc. But my mantra is take ownership. And when I say take ownership, it means you own what you do. You may not be a shareholder in the company, or you may not have options. You don't have to. I mean, I'm not saying ownership in the literal sense, but I'm saying ownership in the sense of owning the job, owning the project or assignment that you've been given. In which case, what you will do is you will find solutions yourself to problems, rather than taking your problems to your boss and say, "Sir, I have this problem. Help me solve it." When you take ownership, you will find ways of getting around any obstacle that may come your way. So these are the two advices: curiosity to question and take ownership.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll end today. And I think, it was really, really insightful. And, it was my pleasure talking to you. Thanks a
Okay.
lot for being a part of CFO Club. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.